Of course, we are continuing to check in with law enforcement agencies about how the past year has gone. Taylor Fleming went to Normal to check in with police there, who talked about everything from pop-up parties to new officers on the force.
Normal Police Department says they had one of their busiest years to date. Normal police have identified their biggest challenges and achievements of 2024. Police say hiring new officers and being involved with events are their biggest wins from the year. They've made it a focus to be more engaged with their community, attending or planning over 300 events this year. It was one of the busiest years for service calls ever, with officers being called into the field to unlock cars, help in a mental health crisis, or monitor suspicious people.
Crime is not necessarily up, but the need for police services is. So that's why we're focusing so heavily on recruiting good officers so that we can kind of break that down a little bit and provide the community with the assistance that they need.
Several officers were added to the force this year, and they want to continue recruiting at high levels. Normal is planning to hire between 6 and 9 officers next year, with classes in winter and summer.
We have a lot of officers who are eventually will be retiring, and so bringing on those new officers who can really learn from the experienced officers but then bring in their own experiences and knowledge to really help out the community is very important.
One of the challenges they faced this year was large gatherings known as pop-up parties, which became violent in September, leaving an 18-year-old dead. Officers say they feel prepared to deal with any similar parties next year, thanks to an ordinance passed by the town council in December, prohibiting nuisance gatherings and regulating park property. Officers said the ordinance won't be used to hammer people with excessive fines, but it will be an extra tool they can use for extreme cases.